Hello, everyone. My name is Reza, and I'm one of the film programmers for this year's Real World Film Festival. I'm so glad to be here with the filmmakers from Home Identity Shorts program. In order, Carlos Soriano, the filmmaker of There is Food at Home, Roger Galvez, the director of Lavanderia, and we have the producer of There is Food at Home, Nene, and King Louie Palomo, the filmmaker of Nene, Charlene Moore, the director of Chocolate, and Corine Colors, the filmmaker of the Bleach. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. So Home Identity is my favorite program at the Real World. And to my surprise, each year, filmmakers come up with totally different and unique way of storytelling. So I'm wondering what inspired you, what motivated you to make this film? So let's start with Carlos.
Thank you so much for having us. And I am the director. There's Food at Home. Which is I'm sorry. There's Food at Home. There's Food at Home is a documentary about a young cook in the city of Montreal, and particularly in a very diverse neighborhood called Saint Michel. And we wanted to explore how the community is impacted and vice versa with this character. We were looking at issues of intergenerational issues and also like identity and overcoming, being an immigrant and maybe being rejected in certain circles, etc. The program from which the film is coming from is a documentary and fiction program at INIS that is aimed at people of color, immigrants, and from the diversity, as we call it here in Quebec. So I think it motivated the screenwriters and us directors and producers to go into these subjects and try to bring out what our experience looks like in this city. And I think that's what motivates it particularly.
Great, amazing. And how about you, Roger?
So Lavanderia is it's really like a little slice of actually my personal life. So even down to the characters' names is I am Lito, like that's what my family has always called me. Lala is my sister and Anna is my mom. And the story of just these this memory that I have from when I was about, I would say like 7 to 10, of going to this dry cleaners on Friday nights with my mom after she finished work, after school. We'd go clean this place. And for me, it was really like this kind of like magical time of the week where I got to go see these big machines and kind of be in this space that normally like no one really has access to unless if you're an employee of the dry cleaner, and kind of like a reconciliation with those moments now in my 30s where I look back on that and I think, that was work. And from the outside, that was like, children working and my family kind of finding another way to make ends meet. But when I look back on it, I think back on it very fondly. And it's a lot of time of bonding for me and a lot of play. I mean, like it was where I kind of went to get money for Pokemon cards and get pizza every week, and it was fun for me. And so the inspiration I obviously comes from that, but it's also a way of commemorating and kind of being something for my family to look back on too. So kind of like solidifying our history in this place that we're not from.
Amazing. And how about you, King?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, this is like actually my first film to direct. I've produced a bunch of short films before, but this is actually the story. People tell me like you should tell this story when I pitch it to people who might want to direct it, and they want me to direct it just because the story is inspired by my grand aunt, and she's a painter, and that inspired me to do art, to do film. And for this particular film, it's just about her, and my commemoration about her, because I haven't seen her when she passed away. And the film really goes beyond like about this elderly lady trying to finish her last painting, and then her daughter and her grandson tried to visit her, not knowing it might be their last time. And it's just for me telling that story that when I saw my grand aunt, like I didn't know that it's actually the last time that I'm gonna see her. And I'm happy to be actually like, when I finished this film, I finished post-production for 2 years and finished this during COVID time. And when I tell people about this story, it kind of like changes now, because now I tell people, like, when you visit someone, try to say hi, or like tell them how are they doing, because you never know, it there might be the last time. So that's kind of like, now it changes when I make it, and it changes when I'm doing it, when I'm post-production, and now it changes when I'm in festival run. And it's just for me, like trying to connect with people who lost their loved ones, and also like to people who stay away, like not be afraid of the death itself, because it's we're gonna go there somewhere, but yeah.
Great. And Charlene?
Tanse Buju. So yeah, this film I'm the director and creator of. It actually was created through the Windex Film Festival's One Take Super 8 event, where you enter this lottery, and if you get picked, then you get one roll of film on Super 8 camera, and you have a weekend to film something, and that's all filmed in one take. And then at the screening is the first time you ever see the film, and you make sound to go along with it, and they get played together, and all the filmmakers watch their films for the first time. And so this film was made through that event. And so this film was all shot in one take. At the time, I'd been hanging out with the coolest people, and we all just worked together on this film for a day. And I filmed it in 2 different locations, and that's intercut throughout the thing. So we had to travel back and forth. And so it was kind of wild. But it was amazing because this film is really a personal film. It talks about, the cycles of dealing with the effects of like intergenerational trauma and colonization and, like patriarchy and, capitalism and all that fun stuff. And so it's just kind of this inner dialogue that's highly dramatized. And so it was just a fun process, and it kind of came through the process. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Great, amazing. And Corine?
Hi.
Hi.
Nice meeting you all. Yeah. So my film's name is The Bleach. Let me first start by introducing myself. I'm Corine Colors. I'm a Lebanese filmmaker. And my film, The Bleach, comes from the context of Lebanon. It was being made in the end of the year 2019 and the beginning of 2020. It started like an experimental film, a speech where the mother, Great Lebanon, wanted to take her people, her children, on a ride and show them visually what they've become and what their home country became and what she is becoming. And all this happens with visual metaphors. And I relate to everyone speaking here, and also to King Louie when you were speaking about a story that is evolving. Well, The Bleach was this ride with the Great Lebanon. And then at the end, a few nights when the film ended, there was the huge apocalyptic blast in Beirut on August 4th. And this is how the Bleach became the last words, the testament of Great Lebanon. She was telling her people, her children, what she wanted the night before the apocalyptic, before her assassination, basically. So this is what the Bleach became, and what is, was, and became. So that's the story of the Bleach.
Great, amazing. And Anais, you are the only producer on this panel. So, and I would like to ask you, what did you see in Carlos' story that you decided to go and pick that story and produce that film?
Yeah, basically, every story starts with a challenge, and when the challenge is very personal and very attached with home and identity, you have a multitude of challenges that give you a big boost to really want to do the story. But what really makes you, and if I am answering your question, to make this story is when this story is everlasting, when this story can grow, when this story can be today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow. And this was the particularity of the Bleach, because you could watch this film and this story when Lebanon was immersed with the biggest crisis of garbage and environmental crisis. And you could watch the Bleach when the uprising happened in October 2019, when the people wanted their dignity back. They wanted nothing but to change the way they are living, to bring back their dignity. And right after the apocalyptic event and the Beirut blast, it became a very big scream. And if you watch them at the three phases, you would feel maximum. You would relate with the story. So to produce a story is to produce a story that is everlasting and that can survive. And especially for us independent filmmakers, we can't have our $1 million are not very close to us. We have to fight in order to be able to make the story. And then when the story is out, it should be relevant.
Thank you so much, Corine. And Anais, I'm gonna just repeat my question. As the only producer on this panel, I'm wondering what you saw in Carlos' story that you decided to go with and produce Carlos' film.
I think that it was, easy to relate it to it because, I have a multiple cultural background where I've grew with so much kind of food too. And so for me, it was important to talk about these relations about family and food, and how it can shape someone, build relationships, deepen relationship. When you're cooking with your grandma, or your grandma is giving you like cut fruits, it's like it's love, And so just yesterday I was at a bar, and they were like cooking steak, and it was smelling exactly like my grandma's steak, and it was just so much memories came back just from the smell of the steak. And so this is a little bit what we're trying to tell, and how it shapes people. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So Carlos, actually what I really love about your film, because these kind of stories about identity, about home, usually come from the filmmaker's background. I know that this film is not exactly your personal life story. It's someone else, but perhaps you have something in common with that, with the subject of your film. So could you please tell us more? What kind of relationship did you see in the story that you decided to go with it?
I would like to clarify something. In the program that we did together with Anais and the screenwriter Lex de Gracia, who unfortunately is not here with us today. This character, the subject of this documentary, is his finding. Actually, he was the person who did the preliminary research about this character and wrote something about how he wanted to deepen the link between food and cultural heritage and intergenerational conflicts, and being an Asian person in the city of Montreal, when we are constantly talking about integration of immigrants and the accepting the diversity that is so characteristic of the city. I think I brought it into an universe of this reflection of the the maternal figure and that moment of kindness and learning that happens in the kitchen, because it is very dear to me, because that's the way that I learned to cook with my grandmother and my mother. And also being an immigrant in Montreal brings a lot of like food nostalgia, that we can say, in the way that my culinary repertoire is not as present in the city as I would like, and sometimes I find myself just eating food that is not my food. So it was I wanted to bring that nostalgia to the film, and that's why I went to more softer camera work and the music to accompany it, to kind of make it a ballad of nostalgia and yumminess.
Yeah, and your film is really delicious, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So Roger, what is very lovely and I found lovely about your film is the simplicity of your film. Actually, you mentioned that it comes from your background as a child, but I mean, nothing specific, nothing special happens in your film, but it has a lot to offer, and every frame, every single shot, actually, with the kid and with both children, actually. Are very beautiful, and without anything happens, anything special that we expect from a drama happens, but you narrate the story, the daily day-to-day life of immigrants. So could you please tell us more about the way you approach to the way of your storytelling?
Yeah, I think because I was drawing so much from my memories as a child, it was important for me that it all kind of felt very kind of like bloomy and kind of like soft and kind of very flowy. I think like the first shot that I had in mind was that really long shot at the beginning of when we actually enter and walk all the way into the back of the space, and then we see the family enter. Because when I think back on those moments, or that moment in my life, or those days that we spent there, it very much is kind of similar to what Carlos and Anais were saying, is like smells and sounds and almost like a vibration of the room. And so I really wanted to capture that in our film. And I've worked with our cinematographer, Wyatt, so many times in the past, and I still do. And I knew that he had an understanding of kind of where I was coming from, because we'd been friends for so long, but also because we had this kind of visual language that we could achieve together. And so when we were shooting it all in one day. And I think for me, visually, it was really about trying to capture as much as possible, but really specifically those tiny little moments that stick out in my head. And then story-wise, when I was writing it, I was really trying to pull, again, like kind of that feeling, but kind of putting words to it. So like, there's things that I say to my mom that are in the script. I still say them now. Like when my mom says that there's beans at home, so she doesn't want to buy anything. It's something that you know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, like I'll come over and I'll grab something. She'd be like, oh, we got beans here, as if it was like the only food in the world. But the funny thing is that I mean, and thank you for saying that it resonated with you as well. Is that when I was writing it, I kind of looked at this script and I was like, there's not a lot of dialogue here. There's not a lot of action, but it feels very honest. And that's kind of all I was trying to accomplish. And then when we finished it, hearing it resonate with people in their own ways, where they, you know, feel attached to whether it's a shot or kind of like a moment or, you know, a line of dialogue, it's been really, it's been really humbling, and it feels really great to feel that little, you know, kind of slice of my life can be expanded to so many. And because of its simplicity, I think it leaves a lot of space for interpretation and reflection, maybe, which is basically the ultimate goal for me.
Great, thank you. And King, you on Nene, actually, you experienced to work with three different generations, from, I mean, a child to a grandma. So could you please tell us more about your casting and about your experience with working people in three different generations? Was it easy to deal with them, or how was it like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, to be honest, like I live in Vancouver since 2011, graduated film school in 2015, and during that, after film school, I have the story in my mind already, and my cinematographer, who also a Filipino who lives in the Philippines, we collaborated, and he's someone actually telling me, like, you should direct the film. And during that process, during the process, there's no actually, I told this in 5 different festivals already, there's no actually pre-production on the project. There's no casting process on the project. I flew to the Philippines from China, from a summer camp, and I met the crew, the cast, 2 weeks prior filming. I actually have the actors already in my mind, because the 2 main actors, Flora Gacer and Mercedes Cabral, they are like the 2 kind of like veteran actors in the Philippines. And Flora Gacer is like a veteran actor. She's been in the Philippine industry for quite a few years, and she's always like the background actor, or like the feature background actors. And growing up, I kind of see her in the background as a comedian, but I kind of want to cast her as like the lead role for this film. I actually have her in my mind. And for Mercedes Cabral, it just fall into places, how I cast her, because she's a big indie film. She's been in a Cannes Film Festival with Brillante Mendoza for a couple films, and you know, working with them is such a pleasure, because I have the story, I have the script, but when I film it, I actually just have them like, this is the script, this is the story, this is like the film that I want to tell, like just go with it. And my film is I don't have a lot of shots in a way, because I just want to film them under like naturally how they want to do it, and just like I would just want to see and feel, hear their how they interpret the characters. And working with those two actors was amazing experience. As for the kid, again, it's another funny story. A week prior to filming, I just saw the kid on a fast food commercial, and I told my production manager, I want to get that kid. And yeah, like working with the 3 actors, it was amazing. I'm happy it fall into places like how it's been, and I'm happy, like, you know, like just like with me just telling the story with them, like what inspired me, what's the inspiration, what's the vision for the film. They kind of just brought it. It's just, yeah, they just brought it in, and here we are.
Perfect, amazing. So Charlene, you pick up an experimental way of storytelling, and you beautifully fit in so many things in your in that concept. So from colonialization to capitalism to actually there are some metaphors that I think actually address to Catholic Church, if I'm not mistaken. So could you please tell us about, the method of your filmmaking, the style of your filmmaking as an experimental filmmaker?
Yeah, well, this film was kind of a deviation from what I had usually done. I've been through a lot of film school in different programs, and so I've been taught a lot of different ways of filmmaking, and predominantly in the more Western sense of storytelling, and like the 3-act story structure or 5 acts, or and so with this film, I wanted to try something different and break away from the narrative organization that I had been doing so far. And the way that I feel became so, how it evolved throughout the process was because I was open to change as things were coming. Because I did write a script of what I had thought the film was going to be. And then when we were filming it, that morphs the film into something else. And because the process that I went through is very isolated, so came the elements of the film also became a little bit disjointed, which I kind of liked the juxtaposition of these different things. And so I worked with Caitlin Pescatelli, who did the sound design, and through that, the story changed as well. And I decided to do a voiceover inner monologue throughout the film at the end as well. And then that changed it. And so I feel like it just kind of happened. I wasn't necessarily like trying to do something super different. It just came out that way because of the process that we took. And it was a process that I really enjoyed. And it's a process that I'm kind of continuing to do. And it's kind of fun and I enjoy it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. Thank you. So Corine, your film, The Bleach, it's visually stunning, and your film reflects on some social and political challenges right now in Lebanon. So, but you make it actually very beautiful and pleasant to follow and to see. So, could you please tell us about the cinematography and the visual of your film?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, in fact, I'm very much interested into playing around with the visual word or narrative. In the Bleach, I used the colors. It was all built diorama, and I introduced a color blend to speak visual sentences, whether to say something good or bad. So basically, what the challenge was to use the colors to say that they are poison at times and that they are beauty at other times. So I enjoyed the contradiction in this visual metaphor, which I call the visual metaphor, in using visual blends to say explosion, to say poison, to say garbage, but also to say beautiful, to say beauty, to give beautiful images, beautiful cinematography for the scene that I wanted specifically in each sentence. So to answer your question, it was a mixture between beauty and the contrast of beauty, using the colors. And this was the key of the Bleach mainly.
Perfect, thank you. So Actually, we don't have that much time, but I want to go so quick over my last question, and it's for all of you. I want to know, actually, as a short filmmaker, or Anais, even as a short producer, what was the main challenge that you faced during the process of making your film? And please just answer I mean, so briefly. Thank you. Carlos, would you like to start about your main challenge?
I think it could
be from the script to a screen. So from funding, from everything.
It was a film that is produced by Ines, so we didn't have we had a limited budget, and Ines can elaborate about that. I think it must have been shooting during the pandemic, and having a character that is normally very active socially and with its community and in the restaurant, having him at an empty restaurant and having to, okay, we don't have anyone else to have him interact, we're gonna go inwards. And it was finding that device that would allow us to go into his thoughts and not since we didn't have the interactions to show him, show of him,
Thank you. And Roger, what was your main challenge?
Really, it was like kind of getting it moving forward after writing the script. This is my first short film, and so I wrote it, and I was kind of like, what now? And I had really no idea where to go. But luckily, my producer Matthew Kiriatsamari was incredible, and he helped me so much, kind of like from forcing me to like write a shot list, a very detailed shot list, which I hated, to like, casting with Jessica Griffiths. And then later on, we brought in Arlen Aguayo-Stewart, our other producer, who was amazing with actually getting the talent together and like working towards something. I really found the hurdle was so much easier when the team kind of expanded. And that was the biggest thing, really. Like, it was self-funded as well, but the whole thing really wouldn't have started without those two at the beginning.
Thank you. And King?
Yeah, I think for me, same with Roger, is like after writing the script, I think it's just more about funding. The funding process is always the trickiest part. You always have this vision of like how you want to make this film, but I think funding is like the most key. Like, I've produced a few short films now, and going into my second film that I just finished actually filming, it's always funding, the funding part. And as a POC person, as a POC, like that's like the struggle for me, because people don't see me as a filmmaker. Like, I'm Filipino, I'm queer, I'm small as well. I'm only 5'2". So like when people see me in person, it's always the hardest part. Like, they don't treat you like I have this film, I want to tell this film. So now that I think this past few years, I think it's getting better, it's getting there. And like with my second film, I think I got more attention and like telling this story. But I think it's still like, moving forward, it's always a hurdle, is just being a minority is like people don't treat you as serious as the other white counterparts. But like at the end of the day, we tell a story, we finish a film, we finish film festival, and we do it again. That's like for me, it's like it's always a circle. But I think that's a big main hurdle for me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, but to hear your experience. Actually, it's the same for all of us as BIPOC artists, but thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. So how about you, Charlene?
Yeah, I had no money for this film. I just, paid for everybody's food and stuff. But it was actually like very a chill process, because I was working with my friends. I was working, with a community that I'm comfortable with, and we just kind of like are hanging out and having a good time, you know? So we're familiar with each other, like we work on each other's films. And so it was very natural and an enjoyable process. For me, my greatest challenge was I felt so vulnerable with this film. I felt like I was really giving more pieces of myself than I'm used to in my filmmaking, and it made me feel like very like naked when we went to have that screening. Like I was so raw. And every time I do watch it with somebody, or even I just watch it, it makes me feel like kind of like every single time. So for me, that's a challenge, but it's so much more rewarding and feels so good to have that release. And that's what this film was ultimately, was kind of a release.
Great. And Corine?
Basically my biggest challenge was to give motion to disintegrating and even dead space by creating my diorama and the place, the location, basically the actors and the location, and having keeping the motion from point A till point Z without really feeling that these are things at the end, but they are performing nonetheless, and you'd feel that the world is alive, despite the fact that this is a dead and disintegrating place. And of course the budget, and to make this in a minimal crew, so I had to shoot in a macro lens myself, to shoot colors myself, blend colors myself. So I really wanted to live the whole experience artistically, visually, and story-wise, and technically. So basically this was giving life to a disintegrated dead space.
Thank you. And how about you, Anais, as a producer? Did you have any, of course you had some challenges, but what was your main challenge as a producer for a short documentary?
Yeah, so my main challenge is like the first time I was doing that of my life. I've never produced any film before. I was more like a director and screenwriter before that. And producing is very intense. Like, oh my gosh. I think this is like not this project, but like this whole experience of producing films is one of the most intense experience that I've ever lived in my life. And so that was the challenge, is to do that from A to Z and to never let the project die, and to always follow everyone and make sure that we do it. So this is intense. It's nice. It's nice. But yeah, that was a challenge.
Great. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences. That was a great conversation. So unfortunately, we don't have time to go for another question. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to just add so quick, or any thank you to your team that you would like to mention now? Go for it. But please, so quick. Carlos?
I want to say that my film, the main message of my film is that diversity makes our society stronger and richer. And that's the main purpose of my career as a filmmaker.
Great. And Roger?
Yeah, I think I'd just like to thank Real World for having my film here, play here. And I'd like to thank my team, everybody who had any part to do with it, from lighting, sound, to PAs, to posters, and especially my family. Muchas gracias. And yeah, I love you. Thanks.
Amazing. King, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I think just with the message of my film, it's a bit different now, but I know still Miss Rona is still in force right now. It's still with us. But for me, like just tell, like for me, connect with your friends, your family. Just say hi, how they're doing, and yeah, just check in with everyone you know and your lost friends, whoever your followers. I don't know. Just check in, and like a simple word as "How are you?" is it will make a difference.
Exactly, and perfect. So, Charlene.
I guess this film is kind of like a love note in a way to all of BIPOC people kind of experiencing the world and the way that it is. And hopefully it can kind of feel like a bit of an outlet for you too. And also I just really want to thank Real World and you, Reza, for having me, and everybody for putting this on and all the work that goes into it. It's so nice to have space to bridge communities and bring people together. So thank you so much. And I have the best people working with me. So thank you to, the cast and the crew that worked with me. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And how about you, Corine?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be sitting on the same screen of like-minded people. And I'm thank you, Real World, for the opportunity. And always what I like to always say is always believe in the power of the story and the power of giving it motion. So on that note, I will go and search your films, and I hope that also you enjoy watching The Bleach.
Thank you. And Anais, would you like to add something?
Yes, hello. Yes, thank you to everybody. I can't wait to see all of your movies, and we should stay in contact, everyone, and to talk, because it's fun to meet people who is also passionate about cinema, documentaries, experimental, anything. So yeah, it would be a pleasure to see your movies and meeting you. And thank you, Real World, for this opportunity.
For sure. And we do have filmmakers, mixers that you can join and meet each other and talk with each other and to learn more about each other. Thank you once again for sharing your beautiful films and your stories, your personal stories with the real world. And thank you so much for joining us today for this great conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation as well as the films. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.